The following morning the city stirred earlier than usual, though for most nothing had changed. Markets opened, priests prepared offerings, labourers moved along the canals of Tenochtitlan as they always had. Life continued in its rhythm, unaware of the quiet convergence about to unfold within the palace walls. Tizoc walked ahead. Behind him, Yautl and Guadalupe following in silence. There was no ceremony to their approach this time, no soldiers flanking them, no announcement of arrival. Yet the weight of their presence was unmistakable. Tizoc did not come to the palace lightly, and when he did, it meant something. They reached the entrance. Tizoc stopped and turned. "Wait outside," he said. His voice carried authority, but not harshness. Yautl nodded. Guadalupe said nothing. Without another word, Tizoc entered. Inside, the palace remained as it always was, orderly, controlled, and filled with movement that seemed almost rehearsed in its precision. Advisors passed through corridors, guards stood at their posts, nobles spoke in quiet tones behind carved stone walls. Tizoc moved through it all with purpose until he found one of Montezuma's advisors standing near the inner chamber. The advisor glanced at him and smirked. "We've been seeing a lot of you as of late," he said, his tone edged with sarcasm. Tizoc did not react. "Yes," he replied evenly, "you have. But this visit is different." The advisor raised an eyebrow slightly. "Oh," he said, "and what should I tell Montezuma is the reason for this one?" Tizoc met his gaze directly. "Tell him I have someone who wishes to speak to him," he said, "regarding our diplomatic mission." The advisor studied him for a moment longer, then nodded. "Very well." He turned and disappeared into the inner chambers. The wait was brief. Only a few minutes passed before the advisor returned. "The Emperor will see you," he said, "you and your guests. In 15 minutes, inside the palace chamber." Tizoc inclined his head. He exited the palace and returned to where Yautl and Guadalupe stood waiting. "It's arranged," he said. Neither asked questions. They followed. 15 minutes later, they stood at the entrance to the chamber. Tizoc led them inside. The room was vast, its high ceilings adorned with carvings that told stories of conquest, divinity, and power. The air itself seemed heavier here, thicker with expectation. Moments later, Montezuma entered. All three bowed. "Tizoc," Montezuma said, his voice calm, "it is good to see you." "And you, my emperor," Tizoc replied. Montezuma's gaze moved between them. "Tell me," he said, "what is it that you wish to speak with me about?" Tizoc stepped forward slightly. "My emperor," he began, "thank you for taking the time to meet with us today." A brief pause. "It is not I who wishes to speak," he continued. "It is my daughter-in-law." Montezuma's expression shifted slightly. "So you say," he replied. His eyes moved to Yautl. "Yautl," he said, "it is good to see you." "My emperor," Yautl responded. Then Montezuma's gaze settled on Guadalupe. "And this must be your wife," he said. "Yes, my prince," Yautl answered. "Her name is Guadalupe." Montezuma regarded her carefully. "Guadalupe," he said, "two of this empire's finest soldiers have brought you into my presence today. And yet, neither they nor anyone else has been able to tell me why." He gestured slightly. "I trust in due time you will be able to enlighten us all as to the nature of this visit." Guadalupe stepped forward. She bowed her head respectfully. "My emperor," she said, "thank you for granting me this audience." She turned slightly. "And thank you, Tizoc, for bringing me here." Then she faced Montezuma again. "For the past 2 years," she continued, "I have spoken nothing of my past." Her voice was steady. "Not to my husband, not to anyone." She paused. "But today, I ask your permission to do so." Montezuma studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Speak." Guadalupe inhaled slowly. "I was born nearly 20 years ago in the city-state of Cholula." Tizoc and Yaotl exchanged a brief glance. "I was born into a noble family. My father was a chief in one of its villages," she said. "He rose to that position through service and through my mother's lineage. As a child," she continued, "I lived among the other noble families in our town. Their children were among those in my peer group." Her gaze softened slightly, as though seeing something distant. "We were different, as all children are," she said. "Each of us. Different temperaments, different ambitions." A pause. "But among us was one girl who stood apart." Her tone shifted. "She was strong," Guadalupe said, "not just in will, but in presence." She looked at Montezuma. It seemed as though she believed she was destined for something greater, as though she wished to rule herself. The chamber remained silent. Guadalupe continued. "There came a time when tensions rose between Cholula and Tlaxcala." Her expression hardened. "A Tlaxcalan soldier was said to have been killed near our border." She shook her head slightly. "No body was ever shown. No proof was given. But the following day, they came." The words settled heavily. "Tlaxcala sacked our town," she said, "without warning." Her voice did not break. "My parents were killed in the invasion." Tizoc lowered his gaze slightly, as were most of the nobles. "I survived." Her eyes remained forward. "And so did she." A pause. "Who?" Montezuma asked. "La Malinche," Guadalupe said. "They took us," she continued, "those of us who remained." Her voice was calm, but cold now. "They bound us, marched us, prepared to enslave us." She glanced briefly at Tizoc and Yaotl, "Much like your army did to the Tlaxcalans just 2 years ago." Neither man spoke. "In the days that followed," she said, "she did not break." "She threatened them," Guadalupe said, "openly." "She told them she would return one day," she continued, "that she would destroy them, and that she would begin with those who failed to protect us." Her eyes flicked briefly downward. "Cholula, our own home." "The Tlaxcalan warriors grew tired of her," Guadalupe said. "They called her Mujer Dura." She looked back at Montezuma, "A tough woman." A faint pause. "They could not control her. So they sold her to a Mayan group near Tabasco." The room remained still. "The night before we were separated," Guadalupe said quietly, "she spoke to me. She said she would spend the rest of her life seeking revenge towards everyone responsible." Silence followed. "My emperor," she said, "the people your diplomats met." She did not hesitate. "They have her." Montezuma leaned forward slightly. "And what of it?" he asked. Guadalupe held his gaze. "It means they have more than a translator. They have someone who understands us." Montezuma took a moment to think before asking, "And what is it she wants?" The question hung in the air. Guadalupe did not answer immediately. She allowed the weight of it to settle before giving her one-word response. "Revenge." The word lingered. It did not echo. It did not need to. Yaotl stood still, his thoughts shifting rapidly. The woman beside him, his wife, his slave, had once been something else entirely. Something he had not seen. Something he had not understood. Tizoc's mind moved differently. He contemplated the broader shape of implications. An enemy force with unfamiliar weapons, guided by someone who knew their world from within. And Montezuma. Montezuma said nothing, but his silence was not empty. It was calculating. Finally, he spoke. "Thank you for bringing this matter to my attention," he said. His gaze remained fixed on Guadalupe. Guadalupe nodded. "There are other matters I must now consider. Please, enjoy the rest of your day." Tizoc bowed. Yaotl followed. Guadalupe did the same. And together, they turned and left the chamber.